What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into Neil Young's studio catalog, his official catalog, and currently today going to talk about Comes a Time. I'm going to talk about it, review it, rave about it, rant about it, praise it highly. Then I'm going to rank it among the others I've already done, which include more than just the other 8 studio albums. Time Fades Away, the live album, is in here because it was all new stuff. The albums that were going to be studio albums, but were not released until like the 21st century, like Homegrown. I've done a couple of those. I did the soundtrack of Journey Through the Past. So this is like the 14th or 15th. But I'm going to argue in this video right now, starting right now, that this, which came out in 1978, is the culmination, it's the final chapter in the first part of Neil's musical journey. That everything from the debut album up through here was all part of one sort of narrative arc. Discovers himself in the handful of first albums, peaking with Harvest, finds himself successful in the middle of the road, doesn't like that place, goes off into the ditch. We get the Ditch trilogy, Apex Mountain, early Apex Mountain. We've already had a couple. Like, his career is strong. Zuma, another classic, but he's coming out of the ditch, kind of going back towards mainstream. Kind of over the professional issues and the post-Charles Manson failure of the hippie dream, American dystopia type mid-70s chaos that he was writing about. But he's still dealing with relationship issues. So American Stars and Bars is sort of a cathartic purge of that, I would argue. In the video that I made about that, I argued that it's a concept album. Has to do with him pretty much using tequila to get all that stuff out. And by the time that album's over, he's past it. And this is the album that follows American Stars and Bars. And I think of these as a 1-2 punch in Neil's sort of musical, personal, spiritual journey. He confronts the issues head on and tries to forget them through tequila and exercise them through tequila on American Stars and Bars. And here, he's past it. He's still troubled by it, and it still like lingers in his heart and his soul, but he's not struggling with them on a day-to-day basis as much as he's looking past and reminiscing, and there's nostalgia, and there's like, I made mistakes, but he's still dealing with his stuff, but more like I'm moving on, but I'm not going to just forget about the fact that I had this relationship that broke up. And this album is a very adult, mature, dealing with these lingering hangovers from personal relationships, or from a main personal relationship that took place, in the previous part of the decade. It sounds like a very smooth contemporary album, like a very AM radio, just adult contemporary, late 70s radio type sound. But at the core of it are Neil Young songs with Neil Young lyrics and Neil Young music. I think the music is deceptively just, we kind of think we know what we're getting on first listen, but this is one of those albums that the more you listen to it, the more really minor little details start to jump out of you, and that just how much thought is put into this album and just the sequencing and how perfect it is. This is a grower. This is a sleeper. This is one of those that like, you're going to like it the first time you hear it, but every subsequent time, you're going to like it a little bit more because it's just a really, really strong album. It's not like a Grand Slam home run. I would say it's a home run, but there is maybe a home run to short left, which is maybe the easiest if you're a right-handed batter. Only because towards the end, it looks like it might not make it. But then when you find out the reason for that song, you're like, okay, it does make it on a technicality. That song being Motorcycle Mama, the one song on here that doesn't sound like it fits, but in the narrative arc of the album, it does. We'll get to that when we get to that song. So 10 songs on this album, and I'm going to argue that side A is just darn near perfect. Opens up with a song called Going Back, which is a nostalgia. I mean, it's right there in the title. It's steady. It's unrushed. I don't know if it feels happy as much as it feels content. Like there's not anguish or despair. There's a very, appreciation for simple times, awesome lyrics, but there's this weird darkness to it because I do believe he's from this point on in his career, it's like he becomes Neil Young, the rock star, I think, the musician, the artist. And there are definitely albums and moments where like his personal life seeps through the music. But for the most part, I think he's creating music that he wants to create and not music he needs to create. This is the last album, and especially this side of music, is I think the last one he needs to create. And going back, for all of it's like, hey, I remember these simpler times. I wish I can go back to that. Maybe things would have been easier. There's this darkness, like these weird dark images of almost like without the hippie dream that like all of my ideals were wrapped up in, in the late 60s, my ideas of love and society and being in a band and all that stuff. If those aren't going to work, there might be dark times ahead. And there's this weird little dark vibe to this song. Look Out for My Love is a little bit of a dark undertone when it comes to personal relationships. There's one other song that has a little bit of darkness in here later on the album. And it's just interesting that there's just this, for all of this acceptance and sort of comfort that this album provides, the more you pay attention to the lyrics, the more you're like, okay, Neil might not be optimistic about the future, but he's ready to embrace it and move forward and not be hung up on the past. That's my interpretation of Going Back. Next is the title track, Comes a Time. Just such a beautiful melody in this. Another one, Accepting the Past, reflecting on the past. There comes a time we just got to move on. Just absolutely, the writing on this is just absolutely gorgeous. There is a solo acoustic version I just reviewed earlier this week from the Boarding House shows. I like it better solo acoustic because it doesn't have, I think it's a fiddle that we get in here. This is a very country sounding album, side A particularly. Side A is a little more folky country. I guess the whole thing has a country folky feel to it. But that fiddle in Comes the Time gives it a little more of a flavor. Look Out for My Love, which might be the most interesting song on here. The development of this song starts off really simple. You kind of think you know what you're going to get, and then as the verses go on, more and more musical elements just get added. Just absolutely great, fascinating listen. And then there's this really weird just guitar that comes in towards the very end. Oh, just wonderful. Very deceptive, kind of scrappy. Oh, this is the other one that has some kind of dark lyrics in it. Two of the first three songs hint at this darkness that's just lingering in Neil's mind or in his psyche. Lot of Love is next, which was a hit. I know this from the Nicolette Larson version, which was all over the radio in the late 70s. Really super catchy. Neil is smack dab in the middle of the road, but he's owning the road. Like he's defining what makes the road. And it's a depressing song. It's really just about, hey, if we're going to make it through this relationship, it's going to take a lot of work, man, because I'm difficult. It's also this plea of like, I'm lonely. I hope you show up soon. My mind needs relating, I think that's the word, and not solitude. Like this is written from a lonely place, kind of crying out like, hey, I want somebody. But you also have to know that it's going to take a lot of love, man. Like I've realized through my previous relationship, I'm not the easiest person to get along with. But it's just melodic hooks galore. AM soft rock, late 70s radio hooks galore. Neil could do this in his sleep, apparently. Love it when artists do this. When the Zappas, the Dylans, the Youngs of the world decide like, hey, let's just write a simple pop song just for fun. It's gorgeous. And then side A closes out with Peace of Mind. And it's somebody who definitely does not have it, and he's looking for it. Sounds like My Morning Jacket. I think this when My Morning Jacket they have a couple songs, kind of the slower acoustic stuff, particularly one on Z. I think it reminds me of the Z song, the one that's right before Dandante. And also it sounds like it could fit right on It Still Moves. It's got just this really nice kind of like sincere vibing acoustic folk thing, this cool little Marshall drum pattern that kind of reappears. That's kind of the part that gives it one with like an indie rock My Morning Jacket vibe. Feels like it could be something simpler, but Neil adds, the percussion element to it to make it a little more just different. Interesting, fascinating, just a perfect side A of music. Side B opens up, or the second half of the album opens up with Human Highway, which is a song he wrote back with Crosby, Stills, Nash, and when he was with Young. Was it meant to be for an album they were doing like about 5 or 6 years prior to this? I think they were 74 when they got back together. This sounds more like a traditional folk song. It almost sounds like Neil doing Bob Dylan, but like fully Neilifying it. Just that kind of, expressing, I've been on the human highway, wasn't all that great, got to suffer through, hey, I guess we'll make it. But it has that very folky, traditional, not rooted in dark personal misery, but rooted in looking out at humanity and just questioning what that human highway is going to be like. Then maybe lyrically the most powerful song on here, also one of the highlights, Already Won, this is about the relationship, looking back on it and accepting that we may not be together, you and I, my wife and I, not my wife, Neil's wife it is, but we will always be together in our son. We are already one in this living presence, and the love we had will always exist in his existence. Like looking at his face, I see us. It's a powerful song. It's a powerful vocal, powerful lyric, just absolutely fantastic. Next we get Field of Opportunity, which is full of farming metaphors. There's a reference in here about cultivating, and then the torch of Cupid, or Cupid's torch, and just putting cultivating, as I'm thinking of the last song in the previous album, Homegrown, and then the use of torch in the same line. And yes, Cupid's torch is obviously, igniting a love in my heart. And that's what he's doing. He's sowing the field so that he can reap love in the future. An extended form analogy in this entire song. But I've always thought that particular cultivating torch thing harkened back to the final song on American Stars and Bars, and how he was moving past tequila to embrace the homegrown life. And this just seems like, hey, this is part of my new, much chiller attitude towards things. And then the one song that doesn't work musically is just this really kind of harsh electric guitar. Musically doesn't fit in with the vibe. It's like electric country rock. Nicolette Larson comes in wailing. Boy, can she sing. Reminds me of Cassie's brother on Drive-By Truckers' Southern Rock Opera, which was a duet with another female singer, Hogan, and she just comes in and just start wailing. You're like, whoa, where did that come from? The Nicolette Larson thing's a little like, whoa, where did that come from? It just doesn't fit on this album. It just musically completely feels out of place. But the song is written for Patty, his soon-to-be wife, because she loves motorcycles. So, he's so eager to move on that 2 songs after singing a song called Already Won, in which he's thinking about his ex-wife while looking at his son's face, he's raving about this new one that he's going to marry because she likes motorcycles. So he can't even make it through the album before he's ready to move on. So I'm like, all right, it fits in the theme. And then we get a cover of a traditional folk song. I think maybe like an Irish or English folk song called Four Strong Winds. Not really sure where it's from. I guess I could look it up. Really nice, simple, calm, kind of collected way to end it, almost upbeat and optimistic. It's a Canadian folk song. Yeah, I believe that he was knew this when he was a kid. It inspired him or influenced him, or it was something that was true, special to Neil's heart. But yeah, it's just got a nice upbeat, optimistic vibe. Closes out a really, really, really fantastic album. Yeah, other than Motorcycle Mama, I like the song. I just wish it was on a different album. The vibe, the feel, it's a chill album, but it's one that grows on you. It's one that gets better with every listen. It's one that's got emotional depth, and it's got country hooks, and it's got great performances. And yeah, man, this one's a winner. Where would I rank the album? I'm going to do the songs next. I would rank the album at number 6. I have it above Harvest. When this came out, there was a lot of reviews, and you can still find them online, where people are like, this should have been what followed Harvest. This was Harvest's, natural, follower, whatever that is, the one that follows them. This is what should have followed Harvest. But the reason this works is because after Harvest, he took this really crazy detour in this ditch to deal with a bunch of things. So it's almost like you have like the May Neil timeline of what could have been. He takes this crazy detour for like, what, 5 studio albums and a Long May You Run with Stills, and then comes back and just continues this thread, and we get Comes a Time. So I have it at number 6. I think it's better than Harvest. I think it's better than After the Gold Rush. I think it's better than American Stars and Bars just because it builds on that momentum, that sort of emotional energy that's in American Stars and Bars. And it's just a phenomenal album. And that's with Motorcycle Mama on it. And then my argument for the next one is that Rust Never Sleeps is the beginning of the next chapter. It kind of in the way that I was thinking of the movie Twilight Zone. I actually just watched this movie a couple days ago, and I was like, you know what? This is the way I'm going to define the next chapter of Neil's career. Is Rust Never Sleeps is like the opening salvo of like Neil, the rock artist, experimental, just acknowledgement of music, experiment with genres of his next phase. And like the movie Twilight Zone, it's going to open up with possibly the best scene in the movie. And then we're going to get a bunch of not good scenes. And then we're going to close with the second best scene in the movie. So that's what I think the next chapter of Neil's life is going to be. But that'll be next Friday or a couple more videos after I do some Archives 3 deep dives. But yeah, how would I rank the songs? The songs I would rank. I thought I'd forgotten to rank the songs, but I already actually had. Going Back's my favorite. That opening song just really sets the tone, I think, really well. Then Look Out For My Love. The musical development of that is so fascinating. Slightly dark song. It's a warning. Hey, man, I want to get with you. I want to try a relationship, but look out for my love. Already Won, the one about his son, is fantastic. The melodies in Comes a Time. The melodies in Lot of Love. Peace of Mind. Even though musically even though lyrically he doesn't have it musically, yeah, kind of this. It's a nice song. Human Highway, good folk number. Field of Opportunity, some fun farmer imagery. Four Strong Winds closes out, nice note. And Motorcycle Mama, I like that. Might like that better if it was on a different album. I just don't think it fits on this album. Yeah, all right, but that's what the songs look like. Yeah, but that's all I got. Excellent album. This is one of those, like if you think it's good and like you like it, but you don't think it's that great, like revisit it. Like it gets better. There really are. It's a one of those. It's not like one of those that immediately like grabs you and goes, this is fantastic. It grabs you and goes, this is really good. And then it just gets better. All right, that's it. I'm done. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things, and go listen to this album. It's fantastic. Peace. Talk to you later.